Listen, I know what you're thinking right now. You had the whole weekend. Saturday morning came, and you told yourself you'd sit down with those charts. You'd review your trades from last week. You'd study the patterns, the price action, the mistakes that cost you money. But then life happened, didn't it? Maybe you slept in. Maybe you convinced yourself you deserved a break. Maybe you just felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to start. And now here you are, Monday morning, feeling that familiar weight in your chest, that quiet panic, that voice whispering that you're falling behind while everyone else is getting ahead. I've been there, more times than I care to admit. And I'm going to tell you something that might surprise you. This moment right here, this feeling you have right now, this is actually one of the most valuable moments in your entire trading journey. But only if you understand what I'm about to share with you. Before we go any further, make sure you check the video description below. I've put together 2 resources specifically for people in your position right now. The first is my ebook, Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk. The second is the Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook that will help you build the habits you keep telling yourself you'll start. The links are right there in the description. Get them now, because everything I'm about to tell you builds on the foundations laid out in those books. And listen, after you finish this video, I want you to do 3 things. First, leave a comment below and tell me honestly what stopped you from studying this weekend. Not the excuse, the real reason. Second, go watch the other videos on this channel because I've already covered the specific techniques you need to master. And third, share this with another trader who needs to hear this message. Someone who's struggling just like you are right now. Because here's what I've learned in all my years in the market. We're all fighting the same battles, and we need to stop pretending we're not. Now, let's talk about what really happened this weekend. You didn't fail because you lack intelligence. You didn't fail because you don't care about trading. You failed because you don't yet understand the most fundamental truth about success in the market. The market doesn't care about your feelings, your intentions, or your excuses. The market operates on principles that are completely indifferent to human emotion. When I started trading, I thought success was about being smart. I thought it was about having some special insight that other people didn't have. I thought if I could just figure out the secret formula, I'd never lose again. And you know what happened? I lost everything, not once, but multiple times. I went from making millions to being completely broke, and each time I told myself the same lies you're probably telling yourself right now. I'll study next weekend. I'll be more disciplined starting Monday. This time will be different, but it never was different. Not until I learned the lesson I'm about to share with you. The reason you didn't study this weekend has nothing to do with time management. It has nothing to do with being lazy. It has everything to do with the fact that you haven't yet connected the pain of staying where you are with the pleasure of becoming who you need to be. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, in this moment, you feel bad about not studying. You feel guilty. Maybe you feel like you're letting yourself down, but that feeling isn't painful enough yet. It's uncomfortable, sure, but it's not the kind of pain that forces change. You know what is painful enough? Losing money. Watching a trade go against you because you missed a pattern you should have recognized. Feeling that sick sensation in your stomach when you realize you just made the exact same mistake you made last week. That's the kind of pain that creates change. And here's the thing. If you don't study, if you don't prepare, if you don't do the work, that pain is coming. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. I remember a weekend in 1906. I had just made a fortune shorting Union Pacific before the San Francisco earthquake. I was on top of the world. I had money, respect, and a reputation as one of the shrewdest traders on Wall Street. And that weekend, I convinced myself I'd earned a break. I didn't study. I didn't prepare. I just enjoyed my success. The following week, I got into a position based purely on feel, on instinct, on the confidence that came from recent wins. And I lost more money in 3 days than most people made in a year. Not because the market changed, not because some unexpected event occurred, but because I wasn't prepared. I hadn't done the work. I had let my recent success convince me that I was beyond the need for preparation. I've made that mistake more than once. And I'm telling you this so you don't have to learn it the hard way like I did. Here's what I want you to understand. The traders who win consistently, the ones who build real wealth in the market, they're not smarter than you. They're not luckier than you. They don't have some secret advantage you don't have. What they have is a system, a routine, a set of habits that they follow religiously, regardless of how they feel. They study when they don't feel like studying. They prepare when they'd rather relax. They do the boring, unglamorous work that nobody sees. And they do it because they understand something crucial. In trading, you're not competing against other traders. You're competing against your own worst impulses. Your own tendency to take the easy path. Your own willingness to settle for less than you're capable of achieving. So what do you do now? How do you turn this moment of regret into something productive? First, you need to stop beating yourself up. Guilt is useless. Regret is useless. The only thing that matters is what you do next. And what you do next is this. You make a decision, not a wish, not a hope, not an intention, a decision. You decide right now, in this moment, that you are going to become the kind of trader who does the work, not because you feel like it, not because it's convenient, but because that's who you are. That's your identity now. You are a trader who prepares. You are a trader who studies. You are a trader who does whatever it takes to master this craft. Let me tell you what that looks like practically. Starting today, you're going to establish a routine, not an ambitious, complicated routine that you'll abandon in 3 days. A simple routine that you can maintain even when you don't feel motivated, every single day. Before you even think about placing a trade, you're going to spend 30 minutes reviewing yesterday's trades, reviewing the patterns that are setting up, reviewing your mistakes and your wins. 30 minutes. That's all. If you can't find 30 minutes in a day, you're not serious about trading. You're serious about the idea of being a trader, but you're not serious about actually doing it. And the market has a way of exposing that kind of self-deception very quickly and very expensively. Here's what I did when I finally got serious about my preparation. I started keeping a journal, not just a record of my trades, but a record of my thinking. Why did I enter this position? What was I seeing that made me believe this was the right move? What was my plan if the trade went against me? And then, after the trade closed, whether it was a winner or a loser, I would review that journal entry. I would compare what I thought was going to happen with what actually happened. And over time, I started to see patterns, not just in the market, but in my own behavior. I started to see the mistakes I made over and over again, the assumptions that cost me money, the emotional reactions that led to bad decisions. And once I could see those patterns, I could start to change them. That journal became more valuable to me than any tip, any insider information, any market analysis, because it taught me about the one variable I could actually control, myself. Now, I can already hear some of you thinking, but Jesse, I don't have time for all this. I have a job. I have family responsibilities. I can't spend hours every day studying the market. And you know what? You're right. You can't. But that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to be honest about what you want. If you want to dabble in trading, if you want to place a few trades here and there and hope you get lucky, then fine. You don't need to study. You don't need to prepare. Just understand that you're gambling, not trading. And the odds in gambling always favor the house. But if you want to actually make money consistently, if you want to build real wealth through trading, if you want to transform your financial life, then you need to treat this like the serious business it is. And serious businesses require serious preparation. Think about it this way. If you were going to have surgery, would you want a surgeon who studied medicine or a surgeon who just kind of figured it out as they went along? If you were getting on an airplane, would you want a pilot who trained for hundreds of hours or a pilot who thought they could just wing it? Of course not. You'd demand competence. You'd demand preparation. You'd demand expertise. So why would you treat your own money, your own financial future, with less respect than you'd treat your health or your safety? Why would you enter the market where you're competing against professionals who have spent decades mastering their craft without doing the basic work of preparation? The answer is simple. Because you haven't yet felt enough pain. You haven't yet lost enough money. You haven't yet experienced the gut-wrenching reality of watching your account balance shrink because you weren't prepared. And here's the beautiful thing about this moment you're in right now. You can choose a different path. You can decide that you don't need to learn every lesson the hard way. You can decide that you're going to learn from my mistakes instead of making your own. You can decide that starting today, you're going to be different. Not because you have to be, but because you choose to be. That's the power you have. That's the opportunity that's sitting right in front of you. And what I'm about to share with you in the next part of this message is going to show you exactly how to seize that opportunity and turn it into consistent profits. But first, let me address something I know some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, this is all well and good, Jesse, but I've heard this before. I've made these commitments before. I've promised myself I'd change before, and it never sticks. What makes this time any different? That's a fair question. And the answer is simple. This time is different because you're going to understand the real reason you keep failing. It's not about willpower. It's not about motivation. It's about systems. Let me explain what I mean by that, because this is the key that unlocks everything. Every trader I've ever known who consistently makes money has one thing in common. They've built a system that removes emotion from the equation. They don't rely on feeling motivated. They don't wait until they're inspired. They simply follow their system. And their system includes preparation as a non-negotiable component. Let me give you a concrete example from my own trading. In my early days, I would wake up and check the market. If something looked interesting, I'd jump in. Sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But there was no consistency because I was trading based on impulse, not preparation. After I lost my fortune the second time, I knew something had to change. So, I created a rule. I would not place a single trade until I had completed my morning preparation routine. No exceptions. Even if the market was doing something interesting. Even if I was sure I was missing an opportunity, I would not trade until I had prepared. At first, this was torture. I would see moves happening and I'd think, I'm missing out. I need to get in now. But I stuck to my rule. And you know what happened? My win rate started to improve. Not dramatically at first, but consistently. Because when I took the time to prepare, I was seeing things I had been missing. I was noticing patterns I had been too rushed to recognize. I was avoiding mistakes I had been making out of impulse. And over time, those small improvements compounded into significant results. That's the power of a system. It takes the decision-making out of the moment. You're not asking yourself, do I feel like studying today? You're simply following the system. And the system says, prepare first, trade second. Now let me show you what that preparation actually looks like, because I think a lot of traders overcomplicate this. They think they need to read 50 news articles and analyze 100 charts and become an expert on macroeconomics. That's not preparation. That's procrastination disguised as work. Real preparation is focused and specific. Here's what I do, and what I want you to start doing today. First, I review the previous day's price action. Not every stock, not every market. Just the positions I'm watching, or the positions I'm in. What happened yesterday? Did price behave the way I expected? If not, why not? What does that tell me about today? This takes maybe 10 minutes if you're focused. Second, I identify the key levels for today. Where are the support and resistance levels that matter? Where would I enter a new position? Where would I exit an existing position if I'm wrong? Where would I take profits if I'm right? I write these numbers down. I make them concrete. Because when I'm in the heat of the moment, when money is on the line and emotions are running high, I need to be able to look at those numbers and follow my plan. I can't trust my judgment in the moment. None of us can. That's not a weakness. That's just human nature. The traders who win are the ones who plan for their own emotional reactions and build systems to overcome them. Third, I review my rules. Not because I've forgotten them, but because I need to remind myself before every trading session what I've committed to do. I don't chase trades. I don't revenge trade. I don't increase my position size after a win or a loss. I follow my system. These are the rules I've established based on years of painful experience, and I need to recite them to myself before I start trading. It's like an athlete visualizing their performance before a game. It's mental preparation. And in trading, the mental game is 90% of the battle. If you can't control your mind, you can't control your trades. And if you can't control your trades, you're going to lose money. It's that simple. This entire process, from start to finish, takes me about 30 to 40 minutes. That's all. Not hours, not a whole weekend. 40 minutes a day. And that 40 minutes makes the difference between being a consistently profitable trader and being someone who's always wondering why they can't quite seem to make it work. So when you tell yourself you don't have time to prepare, what you're really saying is, I don't value my money enough to invest 40 minutes a day protecting it. And if that's your attitude, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. You're going to lose money. Maybe not today, maybe not this week. But eventually, the market is going to expose your lack of preparation, and it's going to be expensive. Let me tell you about a trader I knew years ago. Brilliant guy, probably smarter than I ever was, could read a tape faster than anyone I'd ever seen. Had an intuitive feel for the market that was genuinely impressive. But he had one fatal flaw. He thought his natural talent was enough. He didn't prepare. He didn't keep a journal. He didn't review his trades. He just relied on his instincts. And for a while, it worked. He made money. He got confident. He started taking bigger positions. And then, one day, the market changed. The patterns he'd been relying on stopped working. And because he hadn't been preparing, because he hadn't been studying, he didn't recognize what was happening until it was too late. He lost everything. Not because he wasn't smart enough, but because he thought he was above the basic work of preparation. I don't want that to be your story. I don't want you to be the trader who looks back 5 years from now and thinks, if only I had taken this seriously when I had the chance. Because here's the truth. You do have the chance. Right now. Today, this moment. You can decide right now that you're going to be different. You can decide that you're going to build the habits that successful traders have. You can decide that you're going to do the boring, unglamorous work that nobody sees. And if you make that decision, if you truly commit to it, I promise you that 6 months from now, a year from now, you're going to look back on this moment as the turning point. The moment when everything changed. But you have to actually do it. You can't just think about doing it. You can't just intend to do it. You have to actually sit down, open your journal, look at your charts, and do the work. Today. Not tomorrow. Not next weekend. Today. Because every day you delay is another day you're trading at a disadvantage. Every day you don't prepare is another day you're giving money away to traders who did prepare. And the market doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't care about what you could do if you just got serious. It only cares about what you actually do, and what you actually do is reflected in your account balance. That's the only scoreboard that matters. That's the only measure of whether you're actually improving or just telling yourself comfortable lies. So here's what I want you to do right now, before you move on to the next video, before you scroll to the next piece of content, before you let this moment pass without taking action. I want you to commit to 1 week, just 1 week. For the next 7 days, before you place a single trade, you're going to spend 30 minutes preparing. You're going to review the previous day. You're going to identify your key levels. You're going to recite your rules. And you're going to keep a journal of every trade you make. Why you entered. What you were thinking. How you felt. And then at the end of the week, you're going to review that journal and see what patterns emerge. I'm not asking you to commit to this for the rest of your life. I'm asking you to commit to 1 week, 7 days. If you can't do that, if you're not willing to invest 7 days in your own financial future, then you need to seriously ask yourself if trading is right for you. And while you're doing that, make sure you grab those 2 ebooks I mentioned at the beginning. Thinking Like Jesse Livermore, Mastering the Market with Discipline, Patience, and Risk will give you the mindset foundation you need. The Livermore Journal, a 90-day trading psychology workbook, will give you the structure to implement what you're learning. These aren't just theory. They're practical tools based on everything I learned, often the hard way, over decades in the market. The links are in the description. Get them now. Use them. And then tell me in the comments how they helped you. Tell me about the breakthrough you had. Tell me about the mistake you avoided because you were prepared. I want to hear your success stories. Because that's what this is all about. Not me talking at you, but all of us, learning together, getting better together, succeeding together. Now let me share with you the deeper truth about why preparation matters so much. It's not just about avoiding mistakes, although that's important. It's about building confidence, real confidence, not the false confidence that comes from a few lucky wins, not the arrogance that comes from thinking you're smarter than the market, but the deep, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you've done the work. When you've prepared properly, when you've done your analysis, when you've identified your levels and made your plan, you can enter a trade with conviction. You're not hoping it works out. You're not crossing your fingers. You're executing a plan based on solid preparation. And when the trade moves against you, which it inevitably will sometimes, you don't panic. You don't freeze. You don't make emotional decisions. You simply execute the exit plan you made when you were thinking clearly before money was on the line. This is what separates professional traders from amateurs. Amateurs trade based on how they feel in the moment. Professionals trade based on plans they made when they were calm and rational. Amateurs react. Professionals execute. Amateurs hope. Professionals prepare. And the difference in results is staggering. I've seen traders with average intelligence and modest capital build significant wealth because they were disciplined about preparation. And I've seen brilliant traders with substantial capital lose everything because they thought they could skip the basics. The market doesn't care about your IQ. It doesn't care about your education or your background or your potential. It only cares about whether you're prepared for what it's about to throw at you. And here's something else I want you to understand. Preparation isn't just about the technical aspects of trading. It's not just about reading charts and identifying patterns. It's about preparing yourself mentally and emotionally for the reality of putting your money at risk. Every trade you make involves uncertainty. Every position you take could go against you. And if you're not mentally prepared for that reality, if you haven't thought through how you'll respond when things don't go according to plan, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to panic. You're going to do exactly the wrong thing at exactly the wrong time. I've done it. Every trader I've ever known has done it. The question is, are you going to learn from the market or are you going to keep falling victim to it? The market is waiting, and it has infinite patience. It will be there tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. But here's what you need to understand. Every day you show up unprepared, you're not just risking money. You're reinforcing a habit. You're teaching yourself that preparation is optional, that the work can wait, and habits, once formed, are extraordinarily difficult to break. The habit of unpreparedness will follow you through your entire trading career if you let it take root now. But the opposite is equally true. Every day you show up prepared, every day you do the work, you're reinforcing a different habit. You're teaching yourself that you are someone who takes this seriously, someone who respects the market, someone who respects their own capital and their own time. And that identity, once established, becomes self-reinforcing. It becomes who you are. Let me tell you about something that happened to me in 1923. I had rebuilt my fortune after losing everything in 1907. I was trading again, carefully, methodically, with a discipline I had lacked in my earlier years. And one morning, I sat down to do my preparation, and I noticed something. A pattern in cotton futures that I had seen before, not recently, years before, a pattern that had preceded a significant move. I recognized it because I had been keeping records, because I had been reviewing my journals, because I had been doing the work consistently for years, not just when I felt like it. And because I recognized that pattern, I was able to position myself ahead of one of the largest moves in the cotton market that year. That single trade, built on years of patient preparation, generated more profit than most traders see in a decade. And I want to be clear about something. I didn't get lucky. I got prepared. There is no luck in the market for people who do the work. There is only preparation meeting opportunity. And opportunity comes to everyone. The question is whether you're ready for it when it arrives. That's what I want for you. I want you to be ready. I want you to be the trader who recognizes the opportunity that everyone else misses because they weren't paying attention, because they weren't prepared. Because they spent the weekend doing everything except the one thing that would have made the difference. You have the ability to be that trader. I genuinely believe that. Not everyone who watches this video has what it takes to succeed in the market, but you do. I can tell by the fact that you're still here, still listening, still taking this seriously. Most people would have clicked away by now. They would have told themselves they already know all this, or that it doesn't apply to them, or that they'll think about it later. But you're still here, and that tells me something important about who you are. So, let me give you one final thought before we close. The most important trade you will ever make isn't in the market. It's the trade you make with yourself. The trade where you give up the comfortable lie of, I'll do it tomorrow, in exchange for the uncomfortable truth that today is all you have. The trade where you give up the false security of your excuses in exchange for the real security that comes from knowing you've done the work. That's the trade that changes everything. That's the trade that separates the traders who make it from the ones who spend their whole lives wondering why they never quite got there. Make that trade today. Open your journal. Pull up your charts. Start your preparation routine. Do it right now, before this feeling fades, before the busyness of the day crowds out your intentions, before you find another reason to wait. Because I can promise you this, the version of you that does the work today, that builds the habit today, that makes the trade with themselves today, that version of you is going to look back on this moment with gratitude. Not because everything became easy, it won't. The market will still test you. You will still make mistakes. There will still be difficult days and losing trades and moments when you question everything. But you will face all of that as a prepared trader, as someone who did the work, as someone who took themselves seriously when it mattered. And that makes all the difference. The description has the links. The journal is ready for your first entry. The only thing missing is you. Let's get to work.